Armstrong with us here, of course, on behalf of Mitchell and Ness. Now, BJ, we saw a lot of you in episode 8. Episode 7 touched a lot on Michael's first retirement, the Bulls team without Michael, and when he came back. So I want to jump right into Michael's first retirement, and then we'll get into your big debut in episode 8. So first thing I wanted to ask you was it as shocking to you as it was for everyone else when Michael first retired?
Well, no, I wasn't shocked. Knowing him and knowing everything that we had been through over those last 4 or so years, there was a lot of pressure that was building, internal pressure, not from the outside, but internally, just having the responsibility of performing at that level. We were coming into every season with one expectation. We were going to win a championship or it was a bust of a season. So that's a lot of pressure for anyone to handle. He accepted that responsibility as the best player on the team. We all accepted those responsibilities. But you know what? I think over time, it just wears you out. It wears you out. We all felt, that pressure. I think, I think it was touched upon in the documentary that it was a sense of relief after we had won the 3rd championship. And then everything that transpired over that summer, it was just a culmination of things to where, he figured out what he needed to do to gather himself. And eventually his decision was he wanted to retire. And, he did what he had to do.
Was there a certain moment when you knew, did he give you guys a heads up as a team beforehand? Like, hey, we're going to have a presser, or how did that go about?
Well, no, he didn't. And
wow.
if you remember, if you're looking at the doc, we didn't learn till like a couple of days before training camp. So, it was kind of suddenly, we were sudden. I think it was doing the baseball, if I remember correctly, it was right during the baseball season or the playoffs in the baseball. So that was right before we were about to start training camp when we found out. Wow. And so, I think he thought about it. He took everything into consideration. And Mackenzie at that time, there was a lot of things, that was going on publicly. We knew the Jordan character, but privately, you have to deal with what you have to deal with from your family, deal with things you have to deal with. And that was a big decision. And we understood his decision. We understood that he needed, to do what he needed to do. And we just wanted to be there to support him as well.
What was that first meeting like with the team? I want to know what the vibes were like. I'm sure there was not a sense of relief, but it was like, okay, we don't have someone yelling at us all the time, or someone else is going to have to take that position. What were the vibes like in the first meetings?
Well, the yelling, like that, we all yelled at one another. That's what we did. Okay. So, that's what we did. And that's why we were a good team, is because if I did something wrong, they could yell at me. If they did something wrong, I could yell at them, and vice versa. So we were really good about that as a team, as a group. We had what I refer to as a bunch of truth tellers on the team. We were going to tell each other our truth. And it wasn't personal. It was just what we had to do because we understood the results we wanted. And when he left, when Michael finally retired here, we knew we had to regroup, and we knew we had to, play a different way. We knew if we were going to win, we had to come up with this game plan kind of quickly. It wasn't something that we could prepare for over the summer. Our team wasn't built to be a different team. We were built to be a team around Michael Jordan. And then suddenly in a week or so, we had to change our plan. The thing I remember most about that season was the emergence of Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen, in all of this, I don't want this to ever get lost. He was an MVP caliber player that year. He was terrific. I mean, he led us in scoring, assists, steals, everything. He was MVP of the All-Star game. And Scottie Pippen really took the biggest jump in his career. He went from the number 2 guy to the number 1 guy. And he had arguably the best season of his career. Statistically, he was just incredible. And so that's what I remember, is we continue to find other ways to win and be competitive in this league.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to touch on what you thought the biggest difference for you personally on that team was with Scottie leading compared to MJ. What did you see as being the biggest difference between that leadership?
Well, we all had to fill in the gaps, right? With Michael, we knew we had a closer. we knew we could close the game with Michael, because if the game was close, we knew in the last 4 minutes we could execute almost to perfection with him on the court. With Scottie, we had to figure out new ways. Scottie was certainly going from a distributor, a guy who initiated the offense, who managed the game as a point forward, to suddenly now we needed him to be a closer. We needed him to be the closer and take shots during the end of the game. Then suddenly I had to become the initiator, another player. So we all had to kind of move the pieces around. We still had our same system. We still had our same mindset. We just needed to shift other players around. And Scottie was, I'm telling you, Mackenzie, he was phenomenal. And he was right there. He could have easily been MVP of the league.
And I want to flash forward to the playoff series with the Knicks, Game 3. What do you remember most about those final seconds with Tony, Phil, and Scottie? Because I feel like Scottie kind of reached a boiling point there, and we got to see that in the doc a little bit.
Well, yeah, that was, they touched upon that last night, and it was during the game, so you're just trying to figure out the game. And for us in Game 3, we were already down 0-2 in the series, so that was a must game for us, and we had played well enough to win that game. But the Knicks were a great team. They were a resilient team. They continued to play through, and they tied the game up. So I don't remember much about what was going on at that time, because I was just trying to finish out the game. But I did remember, I was just locked into the game. But what I do remember is our leader, Bill Cartwright, after the game, he addressed the situation, and it brought everyone. Bill was in tears, everyone was in tears, and it was just one of those moments that you'll never forget, because we love Scottie, and Scottie that's my guy, that's our guy, and we've all had our moments, right? And it happened. That's what happened. But the thing I was proudest of then and still to this day is that Bill Cartwright was there to set an example for us and provide the leadership that was necessary for us to move on. It did. And then, in that series, Game 4, Scottie came out, played great. Game 5, 6, and we took that team to 7 games. And that series could have easily gone. It could have, gone left, or it could have gone right. But we had the leadership internally. And Mackenzie, Bill Cartwright's speech at the end of the game was one of the great moments of my career, because I was getting a chance to see, people who really care about other people, right? It wasn't about the game. It was about, this is us. Be upset, be mad, or whatever was going on. But hey, we love you. And that's our guy. And we brought him back in because we needed Scottie. And that's what I remember most. And then we moved on. So even to this day, hey, it happened. We did it. Bill showed us how to resolve a problem. And then we went on and won Game 4. And then, and we almost won the series. So it was just one of those moments where it was just like, wow, I was a young player at the time, but, thank goodness we had Bill Cartwright, because he was the one who showed us the way and guided us to what we needed to hear at that time.
And it kind of shocked me in a sense when in the documentary, Scottie at the end, he goes, if I could have gone back in time, I probably wouldn't have changed what I did. Did that shock you after, you talk about that emotional time in the locker room and how it brought you guys closer together? Do you think him doing that brought you guys closer? Is that what he meant by saying that?
Well, look, I understand.
Not putting words in his mouth.
No. I understand. I understand. I understand where he was coming from. I understand what it looks like. I can only imagine what that felt like and all of those things. But the thing is that Scottie knows this about us. We're here for him. And that's so, yeah, okay. All right. But that we're gonna come. That's the funny part about it, is he knows that we're gonna say, okay, Scottie.
All right, yeah.
Come on. Group hug, come on in. So that's Scottie. That's our guy. And he knows that, and I understand that. And look, that's part of it. That's part of who we are. That's why we were a great team, is because we're going to allow you to be you, if there's anything within that group, everyone, you could see there were a lot of personalities to manage with those teams, right? Yeah. There was a lot of things going on. So that's okay. But what I did know, when it's time to play and perform, and when we got in between the lines, we were going to figure it out. And that's what made us a great group.
Yep. Did that statement like change the way you saw his apology in 1994, or you said what it means? Okay.
No, because in Game 4, I mean, he perhaps had one of the greatest dunks of NBA history, right? When he dunked on. Yeah, I mean, that's just like, it's part of, if it's anything. Well, it makes me laugh. It's because, it's not like I'm condoning this type of, like, this is how you should act, or this is what you should say. But if you want to be great, you have to learn how to function in these environments. And that's why I'm laughing, is because that's how that's like part of the deal. It just makes me laugh because you're like, okay, we all say things. It's like, everyone's saying things to like, hey, I'm this, I'm that. But like I tell the guys all the time, I'm 50 now. Like, that was then. I'm just trying to get through the day.
Don't age yourself.
I got to age myself because that's what it is. But it's when you're 20, you do things, Mackenzie, that you look back and you go, I wish I could have a do-over, So that's okay. Scottie said it. That's okay. When we see him, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to laugh and think about all the crazy things we did together and all the great moments. And then, and then we'll allow him to say whatever he wants to say. And then we'll bring him back in and we'll get our group hug, sing Kumbaya. And then we'll move on with our life. So it's all good, though. It's all good.
And you guys took the Knicks to 7 in the Eastern Conference semis. In a Game 7 series, obviously things can clearly go one way or the other. Do you feel like that 93-94 team could have won a championship?
Well, we felt good about our chances, right? You don't lose Michael Jordan and then suddenly, all of a sudden say, well, we can still win the NBA finals. But what we did do is we knew we could compete, and we knew how to compete. And we all had to figure out a different way. And that was a tall task. We lost the best player in the NBA, and we were still one play away from getting back to the conference finals.
That says something. That
says something, right? That says something about the group. When I look back on it, Phil Jackson did an incredible job of coaching that year. I can't remember if he was coach of the year that year, but he was like spot on. Like, we didn't have time to prepare for this. It wasn't like we knew that he was like Michael was retiring and we had time in the summer to prepare. It was like all of a sudden, like a couple of days before training camp, that was put on us. And all of a sudden, what are we going to do? We got to figure out how we're going to play. So it was just like we did all of this on the fly. And then, by the way, we still won 55 games that year. So it was just, it was just like one of those things that we just had to do. But you can just, by that alone, you can tell how resilient everyone was, and everyone accepted the responsibility. Everyone accepted the pressure, and none of us knew, how we were going to respond to it, but we hung in there together. And it all started with Scottie, because he was right on the top of his game.
And one of my favorite parts of the docuseries was when they flash forward to the 94-95 season, and you playing a really big role in MJ's flirting with him coming back. And your breakfast with him is now famous. Did you go to that breakfast knowing you would invite him to practice? Because I know you didn't just invite him to practice.
Well, I would love to take credit. But, because when you have things like that and people mean, there's a few things you'll take away from professional sports, and your friendships is one that I always take very serious. The relationships and the friendships that I have with people, because they last a lifetime. So to be honest with you, Mackenzie, I had no idea. I had no intention of coming back to play. It was just, I wanted to be a good friend. Like, Michael was always going to be a good friend. He would check in. I check in with him. How's baseball going? How's life, kids, family? And then he was like, I'm in town. I was like, oh, great. And he was like, well, let's grab a bite. For sure. Hey, I got practice, but let's do it and figure it out. And one thing led to another. And before we knew it, it was guys being guys. And that's all it was. It was like, what's going on? How you doing? And hey, I have my practice stuff on, and then he was talking. I was like, hey, I got to go. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but I got to go to practice. And then he starts talking, and we started, just being silly. I mean, honestly, that's what we're doing. Like, that's the one thing with Michael that for us who have spent time with him more than the star, which we all see, being one of the guys is probably his greatest gift. And he's just a regular guy, and he's really funny. And he's, of course, you can see a little bit here, the trash talking that was always prevalent. So before we knew it, we were just doing what we always do, right?
You joked about playing one-on-one with him. Did you actually run a game up, and who won?
Well, he won. I have to admit, he won the game. He did win the game.
At least you talked smack.
Yeah, you get your talking in, right? And then you win. And the thing is, I couldn't. Well, it's two things that really happened. I couldn't believe. One, that it was like funny, like like we're seeing him, and I was just happy to see him, and we were there, and hey, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, he went from there to like we're talking, and then we're talking smack. And I never thought, and still, I can't believe he did it. Like he can't, because he had shoes on, he had clothes on. Is that he would really play? So I was like, all right, let me just say something that's so outrageous. Like, you'll never do that. Okay. Yeah, you'll come and play. And he was like, oh yeah, I will. I was like, all right, whatever. There's no way you're going to do that. You're not going to play in your shoes. You don't have sneakers. You don't have anything.
Yeah.
And he did it. So I couldn't back down, right?
You're like, oh shoot.
And I'm still embarrassed that I lost to a man in street clothes, right? And I lost to
Jay, I mean,
no, it wasn't. It's like one of those things. It's like, he called me out, I called him out, and then he went there. And but it was great for him. And honestly, it was just one of those things where I had no idea. I wasn't like thinking about it. It was just like I was just happy to see that he still felt comfortable talking trash. He still felt comfortable being who he was, and he knew that he could still do whatever, and do his thing. So I don't know if that was the reason, but what I did want him to know is that, we were there for him, and I knew Scottie and everyone would love to, see him. And thank goodness that he came back, because that's what he does. And that's what he's, some things in life, you'll find something you love to do. And that's what he loved to do. And so if me getting beat by a man in street shoes, if that's what it took, then you know what, so be it.
I don't really remember if they said in the doc how many practices he had with the team, but I want to know for you personally, was there a moment when you were like, oh, he's definitely coming back?
Well, I didn't know, I never asked him. Like, I honestly, I never asked him. It wasn't like my concern. Like, it was just, it was just like, I was just happy that to see him, whatever he was dealing with, that he still felt comfortable enough to come back and still it was like we didn't miss a beat. It was like, okay, he went away for a little bit, and then he came back and he did miss a beat. He was still talking. He's still like this big personality, and he was talking trash to everyone, right? That's kind of like what we did. Like you broke up the monotony of the season by like talking trash to one another, always challenging one another. And I was just so happy that he was comfortable coming back around, knowing that whatever was going on, hey, do your thing, but you always are welcome here, and you always have a family here. And that, and then Scottie, and then Phil, and the rest of the guys, knowing that he could be himself. And that was important for all of us, because we had spent so much time together. Like, all of a sudden you don't just, like, who is this guy? No, that's our guy. Hey, come on back. And then we started talking trash, and then he gave us an enormous amount of confidence when he did come back. And, it was the only thing was he couldn't get in the proper condition that he needed to be in. Right. Yeah. That was the only, it just wasn't enough games, but I give him all the credit for putting himself out there, understanding what was the task at hand. And, we did the best we could. And, you know what? We finished the season strong, and, we made a good run in the playoffs.
And one of the biggest questions I had was when the whole baseball strike was going on, did you think if there wasn't a baseball strike, you would have gotten that time with Michael Jordan to kind of reel him back in? Because theoretically, he would have still been playing in Alabama, I believe, during that time, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, looking back on it, yeah, that probably played a factor into it. But we were talking regardless. Like him and I were like, we were always communicating. I wasn't, this wasn't something that was like, this is a lifelong thing. This wasn't like, okay, we played and hey, bye, and we'll see you in the next life, right? Yeah, peace, right? It was like one of those things where, hey, he was playing and we check in and he would watch the games and he would call and we were just like buddies, you know what I mean? Not like buddies, but we were like, you check on your people, right? Hey, how you doing? Everything's good? Yeah, everything's good. We can't complain. So it just seemed normal, natural to me. I didn't think twice about it. I didn't think that was like out of the ordinary, just to like check on your friends like I still do to this day. Like, I check in with guys and Bill Cartwright and John Paxson and hey, how you doing? What's going on? So it was just
you guys have like a mini group text, like, oh, you're on the TV now.
Yeah, like guys are making fun of me. Guys are making fun of me last night. They see me on television. Yeah, they're making fun of me. And so I mean that's what we do. That was before group. We didn't have group text back then, right? But like guys now, they text and they make fun of me and all the time. So we make fun of each other. That's kind of like what we do. Like I don't know, like like it's you make fun of yourself. So that's why I'm always laughing because someone's always making fun of you about something.
Yeah, and I know you you briefly talked about Michael's body, like getting back into the training. When you saw Michael come back, did you see that baseball body he was talking about?
Well, he was really thin, and when he came back. So, and I get it, you playing baseball and you got to train different muscles and do the things. So playing, as you can see, there was a different physicality that you had to play with. So, being thin at that time, probably you weren't going to get a lot accomplished, especially the way he played. So he had to build himself back up, especially his upper body strength, stamina in his legs, so forth and so on, because that's the way the game was played back then. So I just knew that when he did come back, that he's always been an exceptionally, incredibly, conditioned athlete because of how much energy he would expend during the course of the game. And there was just no way for him to do that, right? You can't, I don't care how much training you do off the court or, conditioning, nothing will prepare you for that other than gain repetition. And he didn't have enough time to really get the reps necessary to get in the shape he needed to be in.
Yeah. And I dived in a little bit how him filming Space Jam, it was also him trying to transform his body back into that shape. Were you at any of those famous Warner Brothers studio practices? And if so, what were those like?
Yeah. So I had look at that. That's so funny.
Love that. Space Jam was mine thing growing up.
That was your thing.
So to watch this was so cool. I loved it.
Yeah, I remember being on Warner Brothers Studios, and I remember we made so much fun of him. It was all these green people in green suits and green screen. Like, who are you talking to? Like, but clearly we were all out of our element. We didn't know anything about Hollywood. It just didn't make sense that he would just be in this big green room. And but the finished product was phenomenal, and people still talking about it. And we didn't know, but I can't believe what I really couldn't believe is, thinking back on it, is the hours, because he would, start at like 6 or 7 in the morning. He would finish to like, 6 or 7 in the night and in the evening, and then he would work out, then he would play. And I thought, there's no way he can continue this schedule. Lo and behold, he did it every single day, Mackenzie. He would just do that every day. So his dedication to his craft was like beyond. Like, you talk about putting in, 12, 15-hour days. Well, here was someone who did it. And not only was he filming, doing that, he was taking care and getting himself ready, and he had the energy to do it and the discipline to do it. So it was incredible to watch, and it was no wonder that they won in '96 because he was a man on the mission that summer.
And this is my last question about the Space Jam thing. How the heck did he get everyone out there? I'm sure it's not that hard to convince people to come out to Hollywood, but the guys
you just answered it.
Everyone,
you just answered it. Okay. You could go out to LA to play. Yeah, you could go to LA. You're at Warner Brothers studio. You're in this like private gym. I mean, the thing I remember when they built it for, I was like, this is like $1 million facility. Okay, and then they had the catering, they had food, and then you had all the people. So the one thing they didn't show, which was really cool, is all of the actors would all stop over. So you didn't know who was coming in, who was coming out. You know, I remember Friends. I think Friends, the people for the cast from Friends were coming by. You had like In Vogue. You had like you just had all these people. So it was like a happening place. And you know, I remember if I remember correctly, I think it was ER. I think that was based in Chicago. So, you know, it was like all of these, people would stop by, if I remember. I can't remember, but you had all these different people would stop by, and it was really cool. And I'm telling you, the runs were like incredible. Maybe and now that I think about it, it's probably the best summer league basketball I've ever had because of the quality of the players that were there. I mean, you had like all-stars. Everybody who, you know, was an all-star or whomever was coming through out of LA, in and out of LA, would stop by. And it was just a great time. It was really fun.
I was gonna say it gave me those that Olympic vibe that the previous episodes talked about. But did it take long for Michael to reassert himself on the court, or was it just like all like, hey, we're all guys just being dudes practicing?
Well, you know, for him, I think it was he was practicing in the summer, which was different than the rest of the players. You know, most of in the summertime, you know, you really, you know, you use it as an opportunity to kind of like, you know, get yourself slowly back in shape, or you didn't want to get yourself too far out of shape. For him, he needed that to get himself where he needed to be. So he was working at a different pace than everyone else. So I think the way he was looking at it was totally different than the rest of the players who were currently in the NBA, because he was trying to get caught up to speed. So for him, he attacked it. I mean, he was playing the games like at such a high level, and then being competitors, you're going to raise your game to that level. So it was great to see because, yeah, it was fun, but at the same time, the games were highly competitive because everyone was there to, like, you know, play, and then you want to win. So once, you know, you start keeping score, a little trash talking goes on, and then, you know, we're all going to do what we're going to do. But they were really fun, really competitive games.
Yeah. And the last topic I want to touch on is the 98 series versus the Hornets. And BJ, you were literally the beginning of episode 8. So much of you in there. Was it cool to relive those moments of footage? Because I'd never seen that footage before. Did you know that was coming?
I didn't know. As I told you before we jumped on here, you know, I think it's really weird, or at least in my view, it's really weird to see yourself on television.
You look so young.
Yeah, so I can't watch myself, right? So ESPN was really nice enough to send me the first 8 episodes, and I can't watch it though. So I just watch it with everyone else. I watch it with my family. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what was going on, and it's kind of funny to relive those things because I just shelf them, right? You know, that was then. I've moved on. I'm just trying to get through whatever I'm trying to get through in life, and all of a sudden this comes up, and I could do nothing but laugh. Honestly, it just made me laugh, and I know all of the guys are laughing because, you know what? It's like I never thought that I would be watching that moment.
So cool.
I didn't realize that was a moment, right? If I would have realized it was a moment, I probably would have done something differently. But you know, you do things, and then, you know, my kids are like, "Dad, why were you talking trash to him?" I was like, "I don't know," you know. So, you know, I don't know. You do what you have to do, but we had fun. We had fun doing it, and that's one thing about the NBA is I had so much fun, and that moment, that time just made me laugh. So it was great humor. I was cringing and laughing at the same time as I was watching that last night.
And in those practices with the Hornets team, I loved how you were like, I've got the experience. Like, I know how to go, like, how to fight him in a sense. How did you go about giving a scouting report on Michael? Because I'm sure a lot of your teammates were like, "Oh, we watch his film. That's all we need," and you're like, "No, he's intense. This is what we need to do." How did you go about giving a scouting report?
Well, I knew the ins and out, if you will, of the offense, defense, schemes, coaching. I'd been through the battles with all of these guys. So I kind of knew the responses that they were going to do in certain situations. And, it was a great opportunity for me to put everything that you had learned to the test. So, it just came natural to me. It's not something that I thought about. It was just like, okay, this is what we did back then. And you take every experience and you build upon it. And that game in game 2 presented an opportunity to win, and you go for it. So the unique thing about this situation, which really made me laugh, was like the adjustments that were made in game 3.
Yeah.
And so game 2, you win, and then you make the adjustments in game 3, and you can see the response of all of the players. So that to me is what I found really funny. And knowing him, that's exactly how he should respond. And that's what makes play so much fun. Is you compete, you try things, you work, you do your best, and then you move on. So that was the young BJ, the old BJ.
I love how you had your moment there, though. That was awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. We all have our moments, we had our moments, and that was one little moment there. But we lost, and we lost to the Bulls. So
yeah.
But for that moment, it was fun.
Yeah, and this doc has MJ set up as someone who always somewhat finds a way to create enemies for motivation. How did it feel to be one of those enemies, in quotes, for MJ? Did you feel honored in a sense?
Well, what I did was I knew how to engage.
Yeah.
The game, right? I knew how to engage, and I had seen most of the tricks, right, over the years of how to engage and figure out what needed to be done. When you play, you got to play to win.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, because when you play against him, he only respects the other players who are trying to win just as bad as just like him.
Yeah.
So people will say I was confronting him, or what it looked like. The thing that he knew is that I understood what needed to be done. Now, just because you understand it doesn't mean that you can actually execute it.
No.
So he understood that I understood if they weren't focused, this could go the other way.
Yeah.
And that's because when you come to the game, first of all, you got to establish that you're ready to fight. Forget who's ready to win or lose. You got to establish that, yeah, I'm here to fight, right? You might lose the first 2 games of a series, but that doesn't mean you're going to lose the series. I've been on both sides. I've lost the first 2 games of a series and still come back to win. But if you don't establish that you're there to fight, then you have no chance. So what I was trying to do for my team, for our team, was establish, okay, now you're in for a fight.
Yeah.
And that was all. And then once you're there for a fight, now in saying that, I just wanted to establish that, and he made the adjustment, and he made it. They made a great adjustment in game 3, which carried out through the rest of the series that we never adjusted to as a team. And that's why they were able to win. But, that's why they were the champions, because they were that good as a group to do what they needed to do.
Now, last question I have for you, or something I want to talk about. Next week are the final 2 episodes of the docuseries. You know that. And I'm sure they'll touch on the finishing of the final Bulls three-peat, but I want to ask you, if you were the director of this series, how would you kind of tie the bow, wrap this whole thing up?
Well, the one thing is, Mackenzie, I always just look at him and for the human side. And how would I tie it up is I would ask him the question, why? Like, Just why did you play? Why did the game of basketball mean this much to you? Why, when you achieved everything individually you could do, you achieved everything you could do team wise, why did it matter? Why were you living your life at these extremes, right? So you see he's so competitive, but then you can see the sensitivity to the side where he would just break down. So why? And I think you're beginning to see that he loved it. That's who he was. And I would just let him say what he wanted to say, we all play the game for various reasons, right? And you do things for different reasons in your life and you make decisions. But what kept him that focused to where he had this ultimate respect for the game of basketball? He never cheated the game. It wasn't clearly about the fame. It wasn't clearly about the recognition of saying he's the GOAT. So that clearly wasn't out, or who's the best player. It wasn't about any of that. It was just about, you saw someone that dedicated their life to their craft. And it's so hard for even me to say it because, it wasn't about any of these things. Like, we love to talk about these things and debate and and all those things. When you find something you truly love, Mackenzie, like that's who he was. Michael Jordan was basketball. Basketball was Michael Jordan. He wasn't trying to be any of those things. He just loved playing the game, and he loved the game and treated the game with so much respect that I can only imagine how hard that would be, because there's no other way you can. Why would he do this?
Yeah.
There's no
crying, tearing up.
Yeah, exactly. So it's so hard, Mackenzie, because we get it caught in our competitive spirit, and we get caught in of why we do things. Mackenzie, I'm incredibly blessed to say I saw someone perfect their craft and do something because they love it. Like, not because they liked it or they were good at it or they got paid a lot of money or I could become a star. He loved it, right? He loved it. And he didn't do it because, it was no other agendas. He didn't do it because he was trying to, he was worried about your feelings. He just did it because that's who he was. So for me, I would suspect that this will probably get the emotions, because I can't imagine what that must feel like when you're playing the game and everyone else is trying to figure out who you are. And you're just like, really simple. I love the game. I love the game. I love everything about the game. I love the competition. I love the camaraderie. I love the drama. I love the sport. I love practice. I love the failures. I love the winning. He just loved it. And that to me is where it has to go, because you're starting to see it. Like, you're starting to see, like all of these different things that I just, that's what I knew. And that's what I saw. And it just, I'm not saying I get incredibly sad, but I just get incredibly, I get a little emotional about it, because that's not rare. Everyone's trying to figure out what they should be doing and what they can be good at. Well, he found something that he was he created his life around it. That was everything to him. And to have the discipline for it to remain that focus along this journey, right? This was a journey. So no matter what was going on, basketball somehow always remained first and foremost at the front. That to me is just wow. So, but again, I'm not a director. I don't know anything.
If it goes that way, I'm going to call you out in the next one of these. Were you the director?
Yeah, I think you got it. You got, I mean, Mackenzie, I can't imagine how you could be at such extremes. You can be this guy that's so focused on one hand, and then on the other hand, you can see there's a sensitivity to him. Like you're at both extremes, and he lived his life at extremes, and that's why I have so much appreciation for him and love him, because yeah, he could be tough. If you didn't love the game, I could see why people would think he's tough.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, basketball, he cared. Like no one.
It's crazy to have someone have that such pure of a love for a sport and to be that good. I think that's hard for people to understand.
Yeah.
It's something else, but
he it's pure. It remained pure to him. Like the game of basketball was like this holy place for him and his spirit and what he brought. And like, you know, as I was watching, it's like I'll watch things and then I'll see things and people are like, what are you talking about? Like last night, MJ was like 30 something and he was still winning the conditioning drills.
No.
Like he like, who does that? Like you're 33, you're like just trying to get through the drill. He's still winning the drills. So that was like, and I was like, and I pointed out to my wife, I was like, God, like you could just see, like, you know, at 33, 34, you know, everyone's been there. Like you know, you're running, your mind is moving, but the body is like, nah, not today. Well, somehow he tapped into that and he's still winning the drills and he's still talking trash as he's winning the drill. So I was like, so those are the little things that I go, like, you'll never see that. You'll never see that again. There's no one, you know, it really is. It's just like, but so I think that's where it goes. I think it has to go there. And I'm happy that he told the story. And I think he should tell his story because like he's been this figure that we've all, you know, whether you played against them or with them or you were a fan. I mean, like, how do you become that great at anything and have the discipline to do it? Well, here's an example of it.
I like your ending, BJ. I hope it ends like that. Maybe some more MJ crying memes. Be happy with that too. No, I'm just kidding. But this has been awesome. Thank you so much again, BJ. I always appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you. It's a pleasure. And we will see. And you and I will we're making our prediction for next week.
We will. We will. See you, BJ. Bye.
All right. Be well.